if you just look at this screen right now, makes me want to go watch The Big Short again. Um, I don't. I'm trying. I'm trying that. I'm trying to just have some humor right now. Here goes. The earnings are going to get cut, right? Because we've been talking about this for 6 months. Did everyone think that earnings were going to stay the way they were when we pumped in all that money into the system? It eventually all falls down unless you keep pumping the money in. We got Yellen over here with the Captain Obvious. This is like right now. She reminds me of my father. Right now it's around 7:30 a.m. Before 8 a.m., my father will send me a text message saying, um, "Looks like it's going to be sunny today," and it's because if you look outside, it's blue sky and sunny. That's my father, right? He says all the shit that we know, right? And here's Yellen right on point. Yeah, Morgan Stanley about to do their second quarter earnings. Should be fun. Um, yeah, Dow's down. I thought I saw Philippines did a random rate hike somewhere out there. I caught something this morning. I'm half awake that they didn't even do it at like a Fed meeting. They just like out of the blue announced on Facebook that they're raising interest rates because that's how the situation is right now. Bank of America slashes S&P 500 targets. These stocks fall another 5%. What do you mean just 5%? Is How do you have this much economic headwind and you're predicting anything can go up or down 5% even when things are good? I'm thinking like 10%, 15%. If you haven't noticed, what's fun is the cool thing about technology is go back on YouTube, start looking at CNBC when they brought all these economists on and all these the smartest people in the room, let's say. Break out the Enron book, break out the smartest guys in the room book. And if you look at what they were saying in March and April, it's flipping crazy and how much things have changed from what they thought was going to happen just 2 or 3 months ago to what is really going on now. And if things are accelerating that fast, you have to ask yourself, then where are we going to be 3 months from now? And the only thing that you learn from going back to March and April is you're like, wow, we don't know anything right now. Not the Fed, nobody. None of these economists, professors, analysts. What they were saying back then has been so wrong. This isn't even funny anymore. If you go back even 45 days to what some people were saying, it's scary because you see this thing. It's like if there's a shirt with a thread at the bottom of it, and if you pull on that thread, it's gonna unravel a little bit. You could get 6, 12, 20 inches of string if you just keep pulling it. Right now, it feels like if you pull that string, a quarter of the shirt disappears. That is how rapidly this situation's deteriorating. And it's cool because you can go back. Oh, here we go. Morgan Stanley misses analyst profit expectations on worse than expected investment banking. Boom, live right there. There you go. I just saw that pop up. Yeah, things are rapidly deteriorating. And who's going to save us? Have you seen us do anything right now that seems like we know how to get ourselves out of this mess? When we have no idea what we're doing. We're so far behind the 8 ball. It's just scary right now. So now you got Morgan Stanley. You had Celsius or someone do the bankruptcy on the cryptos. Oh man, I don't even know at this point. It's one of those things that you keep listening to these people, and yeah, right there it is. Morgan Stanley misses. let me segue for a second. The people, if you listen to like June, like May, June, when the stocks were going down, and they kept saying that the stocks are cheap, the stocks are cheap, the stocks are cheap, based on PE and all this stuff, based on earnings, based on earnings, based on earnings are cheap, stocks are cheap, there's some cheap stocks, blah, blah. It because you're basing it on earnings that weren't real, right? When I say not real, those earnings came at a time when we pumped in trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars, when we weren't paying our mortgages and our rent, and that money was going into the economy, when there was PPP money and unemployment money and people weren't paying their school loans. All that money just went into the economy, and it puffed up Amazon and Target and all these places. And then, the earnings looked fat. And then they started squeaking out a little bit of margin there, right? When prices started creeping up, they got the prices up before wage inflation hit, right? So the margins went up and earnings looked even better. But now you got that wage inflation spiral where the wages are so out of control, that's eating into margin, and people are going to spend less money, so earnings are going down. So here comes the earnings correction. And you're going to say in 12 months that the stocks didn't look cheap right now because their earnings had to come down, and then you had to readjust those ratios. So here we go. I don't know where we're going from here. If you look at another thing I find that's really funny, I'm going to do another episode on that, but just to finish this one out, if you listen to some of the stuff before the last Fed meeting, a week before, there was not a lot of conversation about going 75 basis points. In fact, if you said 75 basis points, you were an outlier, crazy, you didn't know what you're talking about. Within about a 48-hour period before they raised it 75 basis points, all of a sudden it became, okay, they're going to do 75 basis points. And everyone was like, they're genius because they made this prediction all of a sudden. So it went from completely unacceptable to this has to happen in like 48 hours. You're watching it happen right now with 100 basis points. Now all of a sudden, we were talking about, we saw inflation peak, maybe they're only going to do 50 basis points, but probably 75, and 100's out of the question because it'll spook the market. Well, if you watch what happened yesterday, now you started seeing the articles pop up about doing 100 bips. That is how fast things are changing right now. And you realize we have no goddamn idea what we're doing. And this situation is far worse than, look, either they know it's bad and they don't want to tell you, which that's kind of what they did with COVID, and that's what they do with everything, right? They won't even tell you about UFOs. They know how bad it is and they're just going to let it ride out, or they don't know. And I think them not knowing is 10 times worse than them knowing and not telling us. And it reminds me of 2008, not in a real estate bubble, even though we're in a real estate bubble, is that I keep saying it because I lived through 2008 as a business owner. Up until they thought everything was good and strong, literally up until it wasn't. It's almost like they were completely blindsided, and then within 30 days, the world was falling apart. That just tells you how, the Fed's got 400 PhD economists or whatever, all these smart people, all these university professors they have on CNBC and Bloomberg, economists, and all these, the smartest guys in the room, just never seem smart enough to see this stuff coming. I say buckle up.